Welcome back to Haunted America. I'm your host, and tonight we're driving down a long, washed out road that, if you ask Google, doesn't exist. We're going to a town some folks swear once sat 2 miles north of New Concord, Kentucky, a place called Elsewhere. Except, and this is important, Elsewhere is not like most towns we cover on this show. It started not with census records or courthouse deeds, but as a piece of modern storytelling, and then it grew teeth. Tonight I'll tell you the eerie legend as it's been told for years, the lonely schoolhouse, murderous teacher, and the graves that couldn't hold. I'll tell you the real-world trail the story left behind, the articles, podcast readings, internet sleuths, and the author who later made it clear that this place was fiction. This is Elsewhere, Kentucky. The first thing you need to picture is the road. The tale places Elsewhere deep in the hardwoods of Callaway County, not far from the shore of Kentucky Lake. It's the kind of place that could have once had a general store, a church with a steeple, a single-lane bridge, but in every retelling, that road narrows. The trees crowd in, and at the end, there's a one-room schoolhouse with windows like blind eyes. The story's narrator, a construction worker or a traveler depending on the version, says the town is scrubbed from maps. The Google satellite view shows a blur where the town should be. The core episodes people tell are kind of grim folktale. A teacher in the 1930s who, for reasons whispered and unspoken, poisoned her students, killing most of them and leaving only one survivor. Men investigating the school find bones in the cellar. Children's voices are heard at night. People who enter the ruins get lost, sometimes forever. These are the images that stick in your head when the name Elsewhere is whispered in Kentucky. So where did that version come from? For the modern legend, we can point to one storyteller, Seamus Coffey. In 2015, Coffey wrote a first-person piece published widely online, among other places. It appeared on Thought Catalog and on Reddit's horror community, and was later read on popular horror shows and podcasts. Coffey's writing is vivid. He weaves regional details with a documented tone that makes the story feel like reporting. That voice, I went there voice, is what made readers stop and say, could this actually be real? Alright, before we dive back into tonight's haunted tale, I've got to tell you something that actually keeps me going through all these late night investigations, and that's Dubby Energy. Look, when you're up at 2 a.m. reviewing EVP recordings or scrolling through ghost footage, the last thing you need is a sugar crash or shaky hands. Dubby gives you clean, focused energy. No jitters, no crash, and definitely no creepy side effects. It's packed with natural caffeine, vitamins, and nootropics. Everything you need to stay alert when the shadows start to move. And if you want to try it yourself, here's a little treat. Or maybe a trick. Head to dubby.gg. Use the code HAUNT10 at checkout to save 10% on your order. That's HAUNT10 to get 10% off and keep your energy level higher than your EMF readings. Dubby Energy. Fuel your focus and maybe your next ghost hunt. The piece spread fast. Audio narrations, YouTube retellings, message board sleuths trying to triangulate the town's location. It all fed itself. People found small, ambiguous evidence in other places, references to a 1953 newspaper clipping, an old man found in a diner who remembered the town, a faded road sign that might have once pointed the way. Folks who love to hunt scored county histories and maps. Others shared grainy photos and ghost hunting footage. For a while, the line between fiction and folklore blurred. And then the internet did what it does best. It checked the facts. Researchers, local historians, and reporters dug into courthouse records, property listings, and old newspapers. They looked for elsewhere in Callaway County. They came up empty. The county's place names, historical registries, and USGS maps don't list a settlement called Elsewhere. In other words, there is no historically documented town called Elsewhere, Kentucky. In fact, discussion pages and the story's talk threads include a direct note from the author saying that the location was fictional. The version that haunted message boards was a piece of fiction that grew into urban legend. This may disappoint purists, but it shouldn't ruin the story. There are two different truths here, the literal truth and the folklore truth. Literally, Elsewhere was a written piece. Folklorically, if that's a real word, we're going to go with it. Elsewhere functions like many American ghost towns of legend. It's a repository for anxieties and for the kinds of horrors that communities only can imagine that bad things happen in small, tight places. So let's tell the legend as it is, and as it was told at its height. Imagine you're driving along a county road. The sun is gone, you've passed a deserted gas station and a farmhouse with a sagging porch. A man at a truck stop, the kind of man who reads the physical paper and keeps tips in his hat, tells you about a place he calls Elsewhere. He says he used to go down a gravel road 2 miles north of New Concord. The road was overgrown now. When he was first, there were still several buildings, a church, a general store, and the schoolhouse. The schoolhouse is at the heart of this tale. It's 1934. The small school is full of children doing their arithmetic and listening to the teacher. The teacher, people give her names in some tellings and none in others, begins to act strange. There are small notes, prescriptions, a bottle that she keeps behind her desk. One autumn morning, there's a terrible sound. The children fall ill. They start to convulse. But one child survives. Sometimes this child is a boy named Daniel. Sometimes a girl named Mariah. The one who lived becomes the witness. The rest are taken to mass graves. The town just packs up. The soil itself, locals say, seems to shrug people off. People who went looking for the cemetery came back sick, pale, and silent. Eventually the town disappeared from maps, erased, abandoned, swallowed by trees, and what was left is a place that will not stay dead. Now listen, the story's details shift with every retelling. Sometimes the teacher's motive is revenge, sometimes she's experimenting with a vaccine or a medicine gone wrong. In other versions, the teacher was protecting the town from outsiders. In others, she was possessed. That detail, the changing motive, is a hallmark of oral tradition. The element that never changes in the legend is the idea of an impossible return. The dead don't stay down, and the town refuses to let the living leave unmarked. For the record, the physical evidence that kicked off the internet frenzy, the supposed Courier Journal article from 1953, the scrubbed satellite images, the eyewitness elders, don't hold up under scrutiny. Some sites that cover the legend have traced those clues back to creative embellishments or misremembered local lore. Local historical societies and county records show no official abandonment notices for a town called Elsewhere, no school board minutes referencing a poisoning in 1934, and most tellingly, no entry for Elsewhere in government place name registries. In short, the archival trail ends. What remains is the story itself and the people who tell it. So why does this matter? Why tell a fake town? Because stories like Elsewhere reveal how modern folklore works. A skilled writer gives a tale a documented tone, drop in a real place name, reference an actual county road, mention a known body of water, and readers' pattern-seeking brains fill in the rest. The internet multiplies the story. Audio dramatizations make it visceral, local message boards add quote-unquote evidence, and after a while, the legend exists in a different register, not as a place on a map, but as a memory. And for many people, that is as real as any ghost. I want to read a short passage in the style of the original storyteller, not a quote from anyone else's work, but an original snippet to place you there. Picture the gravel road under your tires, a fog so low it's almost oceanic, and the outline of a schoolhouse like a low tooth against the sky. You step out, the boards groan. Inside there's a scent that no cleaner can make, old chalk, damp wood, and something that smells like rusted metal and old medicine. You find a blackboard, half cleaned, and in the corner faintly, a child's scrawl that in the wrong light seems less like writing and more like a plea. If you like your hauntings with a side of history, that part of the tale is satisfying. It conjures a place with texture and angles. If you like your hauntings with documents, then Elsewhere will frustrate you. The truth is, both reactions are valuable. Legends heal and warn. They answer to the needs of communities, sometimes as warnings about outsiders, sometimes as ways to process rural tragedies that did happen in other places. Now, on a quick note on how Elsewhere lives on, the story has been adapted and retold in multiple podcasts, Reddit threads, YouTube narrations, private blogs. We've talked about all that. It's a staple of internet-era ghost lore. A case study in how modern storytelling can manufacture a place that feels older than it really is. The tale prompted earnest searches, small pilgrimages, and heated debates on whether it's ethical to treat possible real trauma as entertainment. But it also inspired creative works, songs, short films, local yarns that attach the Elsewhere motif to real Kentucky landscapes. But I know some of you listening like to go look. A word of caution: visiting private property grave sites or rundown buildings can be dangerous, and trespassing is also illegal. But granted, half these haunted places that we all like to go out and, explore are usually private property, and half the people in the community just do what they want to do anyways and enter. I've been guilty of that. Anyways, moving on. Many sites that claim to be quote-unquote elsewhere are little more abandoned outbuildings or rural clearings. If you're drawn to hauntings, consider visiting documented, permitted sites run by historical societies or organized tours. Respect landowners, respect the dead, and respect the difference between a spooky story and the lives of real people. So where does Elsewhere belong? In the archive of modern American folklore? Surely. Is it a ghost story built with the tools of our time? Clickable links, viral psychology, and a narrator who wrote with the authority of reportage? The town itself may never have been platted or taxed, but as folklore, it answers to old needs, the desire for mystery, the fascination with vanished places, and the human hunger to tell and retell a good scare. Before we go, one last thing. If you have a memory of Elsewhere, a photo, a piece of family lore, or a retelling you've heard in your hometown, I'd love to hear it. Send it to hauntedamericapodcast@gmail.com. We'll read a few in an upcoming episode if we do get any in, and talk about how one story became many. This has been Haunted America. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We, in the last 3 weeks, have seen a lot of growth. So if you're listening this far into the episode, down to the end, I appreciate you guys listening and following along. If you guys have any haunted locations that you would like me to cover in future episodes, email me at hauntedamericapodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to learn about more haunted places and go more into depth on them. I have a whole list of episodes coming up already, but I'd love to sneak a few in. Thank you guys for joining us.